As we always kick off the show, I want everybody to take a moment and think about what Goldilocks reminds you of. To me, Goldilocks is all about balance because she didn't want anything too hot. She didn't want anything too cold, right? She didn't want anything too hard. She didn't want anything too soft. And to me, that epitomizes the balance we need to drive the kind of change and influence the change we want to see. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Some of you are joining us directly on the Zoom event and the others are joining on Facebook Live. Welcome, everybody. And it is always such a joy and pleasure to have individuals from different parts of the world joining in to engage in a conversation and help create the safe space where we are learning, we're growing, and we are building relationships that are going to continue to make us stronger and better to help us pursue our purpose and support each other in each other's purpose. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And as we get started, it's important for us to, good morning, Alejandro, joining us from Chile. As we get started, let's take a moment and think about why we talk about Goldilocks and why centeredness is important. The show is called Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Because just like Goldilocks, we want to make sure we approach every situation from a point of centeredness. We don't want to come across too hard. We don't want to come across too soft. We don't want to get into a situation with a very hot approach to it. We don't want to be too cool about it and too removed. How do we find the right balance so that we enter a situation, enter a conversation, and then have the maximum amount of impact to influence the outcome that is going to be helpful for everybody to create win-win partnerships? What do we mean by that? Research shows that we can each only impact 3 levels from where we are. So let's imagine for a moment, I am this hotshot CEO who has built a big company, right? I can only influence 3 levels down because as a CEO, there is nobody at my peer level in my organization. It's just me. My C-level employees, my CFO, my chief marketing officer, my chief HR officer, everybody's reporting to me. Therefore, that's the first level I influence, and then 2 other levels below them I can influence. Research shows that we can also lead from the middle. Why? Because leadership is about how we are able to influence others, and influence doesn't have to be based on a title. It is based on, are we able to guide other people and motivate other people to do what the organization needs or what our purpose that we're trying to fulfill is. So if that's what leadership is, then smart organizations have figured out, successful organizations have figured out, we lead from the middle. Because when we lead from the middle, we get to influence our level, and then 3 levels up and 3 levels down. So all of a sudden, we have 7 degrees of influence, which we don't have when we just lead from the top. That's why good leaders don't tell everybody what to do and just show up and guide them from the top. They actually get in the middle of things and they roll up their sleeves and they lead from the middle, and they help the organization lead from the middle so that they can drive the biggest influence. What is that lesson for us? As we each pursue our purpose and we start figuring out what do we want to do, we get to lead from the middle to drive the maximum impact and have the maximum influence. So today we are going to talk about what is Johari Window and how does understanding Johari Window going to help me understand myself and communicate with others and engage with others in a more meaningful way. As I was preparing for this conversation, I realized even the individual weekly show promotions and the introduction is in a Johari window. It was subconscious for me. It's not something I consciously decided to do, but you can see 4 windows there, right? And how can our life be viewed through different aspects? How many of you think that you sound a certain way and then you listen to your own recording? That's not how I sound, it's how it feels, right? Because when we hear ourselves talk, we are hearing us from the inside. But when we record ourselves, we are hearing it externally. I remember the first time I recorded myself, I'm like, I don't have an accent. Why do I sound like that? Right? But I do have a slight accent. It doesn't occur to me until I step away from myself and hear it as a third party. And what Johari Window is allowing us to do is approach every aspect of us from that stepped back position so that we can start analyzing how are we showing up, okay? Not just for us, but for everybody else. All of the building blocks we're putting in place is to ultimately help us find our purpose and be successful in navigating our purpose and live our purposeful life. How do we know what our purpose is? What is it that I love to do? What am I great at? And what does the world need? When I look at those three things and look at where they come together, in that sweet spot where all three of them meet is my purpose. Because my purpose is going to be something I love to do, I'm very good at, and the world values it and the world needs it, therefore I'm going to make an impact with it. So when I find my purpose, I am able to bring it forth and start impacting lives of others, as well as starting to make a difference for myself. And in that process, I'm finding out that it is a joyous journey and it is not something that is frustrating. It doesn't feel like work. You've heard people say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That's what purpose allows us to do. Allows us to find our best self and put our best self with all the love and all the joy we have to make a difference in the world. When we look at Johari Window, these are the 4 quadrants. There is a part of us that everybody knows because we allow them to see. We know about it and we allow other people to see. The hidden self, the blue box, is what we know, but we don't let other people know. Now, that happens in different circles at different degrees. Why? It's because how much we trust that circle and how comfortable are we in sharing that with that circle. And are we confident that they're not going to take that and misuse it and use it against us? We've all been through this, right? When you're very open and we're very transparent and you're very kind and very helpful, people tend to take advantage of it. And we learn, do you remember seeing children? I remember seeing yourself as a child. You can run up to everybody and be just yourself, right? Being guarded and being cautious and not sharing everything is a learned behavior as we go through life with life experiences. So we're going to do a deep dive into all of this as part of the conversation, just doing the setup for you to get the background. Now, the blind self is what I don't know about me because they're my blind spots. But the wonderful thing about having a network that I trust around me is for them to tap on my shoulder and say, hey, Cass, have you thought about this? You know, what you're saying and what you're trying to do comes across this way. But I know that's not what you intend. Maybe you want to do it this way. Right? When we surround ourselves with yes men and yes women, nobody talks about our blind spots because they don't want to. But how well we become aware of our blind spot is an indication of how much trust I have in my circle. And then the unknown self is what I am not aware of and the others are not aware of. Because I don't show up as a whole person, they don't show up as a whole person. Everybody's pretending and everybody is trying to live this choreographed life as to what they want the perception of themselves to be. And when everybody shows up with masks and armor and nobody is themselves, does anybody know each other? So let's actually jump in and have a conversation about this. When you think of your open self, this is not just what we know about ourselves, but our attitudes, our emotions, our feelings, our skills. How many times have we been so grateful that somebody else saw something special in us, pulled us aside and said, hey, do you know this is something so unique that you have? You need to bring that out more often, because this is what's going to make you successful. This is what's going to make you attractive to people in terms of finding the right employment, finding the right partner, finding the right relationships. Have you ever been in that situation? Any thoughts that come to your mind where you have actually experienced that?
Here, Alejandro,
Yes, Alejandra.
you know, I think that we all kind of play scenes all our lives in different types of situations, because either you want or not, you want the people to react to your way, and basically sometimes as you are trying to play an example for the others, you are deciding what part to show or not to show.
Yes.
And so, for example, I would say that I have good examples where people kind of thinking about these people that sometimes are more introvert, extrovert. I have seen like a good managers of mine that at some point they were kind of acting very extrovert because they wanted the people to interact. They wanted to go and get the people together. So getting into situations that you could tell at the end of the process that he was very tired because he was getting out of his comfort zone, showing himself on areas that he was not necessarily. He was comfortable. You could see that he was enjoying it, but it was he kind of getting out of his proper, I don't know, way to be, and that I believe that sometimes happens to all of us.
Yes, very much. And I'm glad you brought that example up, Alejandro, because technically an introvert is somebody who draws their energy from inside. An extrovert is somebody who draws their energy from the outside by everybody around them and the activity that's going on around them and what they're engaged in. So I'm a naturally introvert. I draw my energy from the inside. But just like the example you gave, I have taught myself to be out there, be open and inviting, to be able to engage and accomplish and influence what I am trying to do. But because that is not where I draw my energy, a whole day of it can be exhausting, because you do not get a moment to go inside and draw from within. Now, for those of you who are naturally extroverts, it is like a continuous dose of something high coming at you, because that's where you're drawing your energy, right? So always be careful. Just because somebody is outgoing and they're out there does not mean they're an extrovert. It only means that they're comfortable being out there, but where they're drawing their energy from is what determines if they're an introvert or an extrovert. And if you are an introvert, make sure you take breaks or you have things incorporated into your day so that you have moments to recharge and draw from within. So when I'm teaching, when I'm doing sessions, when I'm doing coaching, I take breaks every, hour and a half, 2 hours, because everybody needs that, right? Even if you're an extrovert, you need to take a moment and absorb everything and internalize everything before we can go forward. So there are natural breaks we can give people and leverage that to then recharge our buttons, right? So thank you so much, Alejandro, for bringing that up, because it also demonstrates to us that we don't have to be one or the other. We can actually train ourselves to do both. If I'm only charging and drawing from outside in, can you imagine the amount of influence other people have on myself? And then how I see myself and how motivated I am and how happy and energized I am, other people might tend to control.
Yeah. And I would say that even if you, for example, going back to the Johari window, even so, sometimes people like is introvert and can show it in the other way. And if you are true to the others and tell them basically how you are, maybe they will give you the space to also open up in a different way, right?
Very much so. Very much so. And what you just shared, Alejandro, is the first step towards building trust. Because if we can tell people what it is that we need to be ourselves, we are actually giving permission to other people to do the same. And when we give each other permission to be ourselves and we hold space for each other, then we're creating an environment where we can learn to trust each other. There are two kinds of people. One kind who says, I don't care what other people say about you and what I read about you and what I know about you. I need proof I can trust you. Until then, I won't trust you. Then there are the other group of people who say, you know what? I have faith that if I give you a goodwill capital of trust, that you will use it wisely, and time will tell me if I can trust you or not, but I am going to give you that goodwill capital. It's up to you to decide if you're going to squander that trust away, if we're going to waste it away. Okay? If everybody was the first saying, until you prove to me I'm not going to trust you, nothing constructive happens in this world. It's the people who are vulnerable enough to say, I am willing to take the risk and give you the trust. I'm putting everything I have in the palm of your hands. Let me see if you can hold it gently, hold it with care, and hold space for me. And if you don't, you know what? No harm, no foul. I'll pick up the pieces and move on. It's those people who create the climate cultivatable for building trust. Think about that. And then think about how are we each showing up. And how am I showing up is going to determine how open can others be around me and how open I am able to be around other people. Remember when Bob was here, we talked about trust and the importance of trust and how much people are willing to share with us, how much people are willing to help us, how much people are willing to take a journey with us is all predicated on the underlying trust.
Auntie Cass?
Yes.
Is there a possibility that you could be both? For example, you can be completely open and like trust somebody with everything you got, but is there a possibility that you may have like a bad feeling about this person and not go there? Or do you still go there?
It's possible. So I use the term trust but verify. I come from the world of finance, right? So professionally, we have two important roles. In God we trust, everybody else brings data, right? And the second one is trust but verify, right? But that doesn't prevent me from giving somebody else the benefit of the doubt. What I have learned in my life is more than 50% of the people, when you give them that trust and you tell them that you have faith in them and you believe in them, they will rise up to live up to that expectation because very rarely strangers give strangers that opportunity. And when somebody gives you that opportunity, you have to be a really awful person to squander it away. But it also depends on, is this person wired to want to use people or want to value people? If you're living in a society where everybody is using everybody to get to where they want to, then yeah, you have to be very measured and very careful. But if everybody is measured and careful, then nothing constructive comes out of that environment. Imagine it's a basketball game and I have the ball and my team is trying to help me get the ball to the net. And the other team is playing one-on-one in not allowing any of us to grab the ball, pass the ball, or even get close to the net, right? If we live life that way, none of us get to shoot. We never get to get a goal. We don't get to score points. We don't get to build. None of us get to succeed, right? So keep that visual in our minds. The only way the team gets a shot is for somebody to escape that one-on-one blocking and find an opening to be able to catch the ball and then have the skill to shoot from wherever you are, right? It could be a 2-pointer or a 3-pointer. Take that analogy into life. Even if we are in that kind of an environment, who are the people I can count on to pass the ball that they're going to help me score? You know who those people are. And then those people can help you influence other people. And just because you're surrounded by a group of people doesn't mean that is your network, that is your support system. Okay? One of the things you all are finding out is, as part of having this weekly conversation, regardless of where in the world you're coming from, you are building this trusted relationship and network with each other. And it's amazing that you can build that relationship with people that you have never met face to face. Why is that? Have you ever thought about why that is?
I kind of have an answer to that one. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I kind of figure that it's because we're not surrounded by the other people that usually surround them on a daily basis. We don't see how, we don't know what their story is. We just see how they show up. And it's easier for someone to show up to other people that are strangers than to show up in a natural and normal environment to us, because it's easier for strangers to see who we really are than the people around us, because the people around us have us in different boxes and have us in different, I guess, views or perspectives of how they see us. So it's far easier to show up as your authentic self to someone you don't know than try to be that person in the environment you're in.
Very true. Very true. Were you going to say something, Kristen? Okay. You're right, Ariane.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, I was thinking how we're also like-minded, that we're all here in this space together. So maybe that's something that unifies us.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Both are very true. When we are meeting strangers and we have no preconceived notions, there are no expectations to perform to, right? And there are no biases because we don't know what we don't know. Because there are no expectations, there are no biases. We feel comfortable knowing that nobody's judging me by a yardstick. Therefore, I can be myself, and I'm at peace with this conversation. I'm at peace with this group. And there is also this, little bird in the back of my head saying, you're never going to meet these guys. Just, be yourself and enjoy yourself. You're giving up an hour and a half every Saturday to be a part of this, to help yourself grow. Give it a shot. What do you have to lose? Right? You only see them on a Zoom call every Saturday for an hour and a half. there is no way they're going to impact your life. So there is some safety in knowing that they're not in your circle. They're not prejudging you. But when it comes to our own circle, our community, our culture, our family, our relatives, our friends, it's almost like having to perform, because everybody has an expectation of how we are supposed to show up. If you're a female, if in a particular culture, you're supposed to show up this way. The best example I can give, actually, let me tell you guys a story. When I was in school in Sri Lanka, one of the very confusing parts where I come from a country where women are very dominant. The first female head of state in the entire world came out of Sri Lanka in 1960. So coming to America and saying that people are not ready for a woman to be a president is kind of like, oh my God, where did I come, right? So living in a country where women are highly educated, women hold very good jobs, mothers are working mothers. My mother was far more educated than my father. Women can be the breadwinner, and we don't get married till the couple is financially stable because they can start a life. And that's the nature of the country. But then I was also raised in a traditional Hindu household where while the daughter is raised to be the surrogate mother, my parents felt that the girls were supposed to be seen and not heard. So one day my father sat my sister and I down and told us that we cannot speak until we're spoken to. We also had a rule that while we grew up with two brothers, we can't be with the boys when the boys come home, my brother's friends, because, you know, they're boys and we can't talk to them. Why? I don't know. When we see them on the road, we talk to them, we play with them. But when they come to our house, we can't talk to them. Even when we make tea and biscuits to give them, when somebody comes, we give food and drinks. We have to call our brothers to come and take and go and serve it. We can't go and serve it to them. So whatever way, traditionally, conservatively, my parents were wired, that's the house rule. So my sister was so confused. She asked my dad, you know, we can only be around girls. And if every girl can only speak when she's spoken to, who speaks first? Are we just going to sit there and look at each other? What's the point? Right? So imagine the expectations put on little girls. Neither of us were yet 10. We were little. Oh, my father got so mad. I started laughing. I got yelled at for, you know, spoiling my sister and making her think and talk back. Right? But imagine in that situation how much pressure is being put. Now, a child growing up in that culture, if the country wasn't a little more open, may grow up to get into the workplace and never be able to work in the company of men, never be able to speak up, never be able to share their voice and their opinions. Therefore, they will never succeed in a career. Imagine all the drama and the pressure and expectations put on somebody. Thank God we didn't. It's funny, my sister is the one who has grown up to be that way and not me, even though she's the one who challenged my father. And so think about how we are creating environments in our own households, in our own communities, in our own culture that is preventing us from showing up the way we should. And this is part of why being self-aware is important, so that we can break through those boundaries because somebody put us in a box. And when we show up in a place where everybody is a stranger, nobody knows I'm only supposed to speak when I'm spoken to, so I can speak up. So starting fresh, going to a new place, wiping the slates clean is a wonderful way to truly open yourself up, because all those social pressures just got taken away. And literally conflicts happen because we have to balance all these expectations. Remember Christmas and Thanksgiving with all the family? Or planning a wedding and seating chart of who you can sit next to each other so that there is no fight halfway through the dinner? That's the kind of pressure that doesn't help. But if we can create the environment where there is trust and we can show up ourselves, then we can start getting feedback. Because ultimately the goal is this open self to become bigger and bigger and bigger, so that the blind self, the unknown self, and the hidden self shrink and shrink and shrink. So the goal is to have this yellow box shift and take over the space on the blind and unknown self, and shift down and take the hidden self, so that more and more of me becomes open. But the more open we become, the more vulnerable we become. Therefore, we need to be able to protect ourselves and have all of the internal capabilities to be able to overcome if somebody decides to take advantage of it. But doesn't mean we trust any less. Because if somebody hurt you, do you want to mistrust everybody else? Because then we have allowed one person betraying us to change us, right? We have given control of our entire being to one incident, one person. I personally work at not ever giving any human being that kind of power over me. Because who I am and how I show up is a part of me, and it's between me and my God. Nothing anybody does to me or says to me is going to change that. What they say and do are who they are. It has nothing to do with me. Think about that. Take a moment and think about that. We can't make excuses for how other people show up. We can only make sure we show up right.
Can I have that superpower, please?
It comes with time. It comes with learning to trust ourselves. Remember, when you trust yourself and you trust in something larger than you that is already inside you, then you can draw from yourself, and you do not need to worry about what other people can or cannot give you. And true freedom is when you come to the realization that what other people think of you and what other people do to you don't affect you. That is the ultimate sense of freedom.
Can you repeat that for me one more time?
The stage in our life where what other people say and do don't affect us, and we can be true to ourselves and true to our maker and be in touch with who we are inside and be at peace with that, that is the definition of real freedom. Not the fact that I can carry a gun anywhere, or I can choose not to wear a mask, or, I can live in a nudist colony, whatever we define freedom to be. That is not the ultimate freedom, because that is about me being able to do something. Real freedom is about me being able to be me, unapologetically me, own my truth, own my reality, and then have the courage and the pride to hold on to who I am and live my true self, knowing that my life is between me and my maker, me and my God. Because ultimately, everybody else has an agenda. Very rarely we meet people in life who don't have an agenda. But that's okay, because having an agenda is not a bad thing, right? Some people may have an agenda that they truly want to help you. They see the spark in you and they want to see the best version of you. So agenda is not a bad word, right? Some people see you and say, oh my God, this person has something I want to get. Maybe if I cozy up enough, I can have what I can take it from them, right? I'm just giving you two extremes. And there's everybody else in between. But if we approach every situation as what do you want from me? when people act like that, what plays in my head is, do you remember different strokes? Are you guys old enough to know different strokes? Okay, Google different strokes. There's this little African-American boy in a white family, and he's been adopted. And every time they're sitting and talking and this kid doesn't understand what they're saying, he says, "What you talking about, Willie?" And so the script that's playing in my head when people show up that way is like, what are you talking about? Right? Why are you suspicious of everything? What happened to you in your life that you always have to be on guard? Oh my God, what horrible things happened to you that you can't trust anybody? You can't even trust yourself, right? So what I tend to look at is, what is driving this person? How can I help them get away from that negative influence to engage with me? And if not, this relationship is not ready to move forward. And that's okay too, right? But the key is being able to know the difference. This person is ready, therefore I can give trust and I can engage or not. So I can use my judgment. So to your point, Ariane, if my gut feeling is to be careful, I can be careful and still give some space and give them a goodwill capital of trust to see if they will take advantage of it and, hold your trust. But until you get to a point of a crisis or a point of proof, you're never going to know if you can trust somebody. Just because people smile and talk to you doesn't mean they are going to be supportive. They have your interest at heart and they're going to hold the trust. So you have to come to a point of test or a point of crisis to know if that relationship is true and trustworthy. Right?
Do you wait until the point of crisis comes into play, or do you create it?
Oh, good question. What do you think? What do you guys think?
I'll be testing people if I had to.
Testing is okay, but don't do the test so obviously that it can offend a good person. That's the balancing act, right? I mean, we all do this. Especially when we meet our life partner, it's like, okay, you have to be extremely careful. So I'll share my personal experience. I come from a culture of arranged marriages. My husband, Mike, and I were best friends in college. I've known him for the entire 25 years I've been in the United States. We were best friends, and I don't date, right? So dating is not a thing, and I'm very comfortable being a friend. I'm a great friend. I have lots of guy friends. So it was not a big deal for me, right? Even now when I go home to Sri Lanka, I stay with my guy friends and their families. For some reason, I am able to make such lasting relationships with guys that can be truly platonic and truly caring and sharing in a way that there's nothing more than just that brotherly, sisterly kind of love, okay? So we were best friends, but I didn't know my husband was in love with me and he was interested in me. But he also knew that he can't ask me out on a date. So he talked to his professor who was specialized in Asian religions, world religions, but specialized in Asia and especially Hindu religion. So Dr. Johnson gave him guidance saying that if you want this woman and if you truly love her, you got to propose to her. So my husband one day made me pasta and his bachelor sauce. And he said, come on over, I have a meal for us. So, he's my friend, I show up. And the whole time he's smoking, I'm like, why are you smoking like a chimney? Sit down and eat. He said, no, you eat. So like he made a meal for us and I'm eating and he's smoking, right? I'm like, okay. But, we're friends, we're talking, we're laughing. And then he proposes to me. I'm like, what? Right? Immediately where my brain went was, friendship is forever. For me, friendship is for life. And I told him this, I value friendship and it's a bond for life. In America, marriages don't last. Why would I trade something that is forever for something that may be transient when 51% of your people are divorced? No, 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 we're not going there. And he said, oh, okay, can we still be friends? I said, yes, please, that's all I want, right? So obviously he kept proposing to me. Like it was every 6 months, then it became every 3 months, then every month. But imagine, I was not ready. It was not my culture. I was terrified. I wasn't going to go there because it was not familiar. I didn't even know. I wouldn't even know what to do on a date. Right? Because I've never seen anybody date. I've never been on a date. It's not something we are groomed for. We don't have proms. We don't have dates. Remember, my parents won't even let us come out of the room when boys are in the house. It's like, this is so weird, right? But we could be friends because that's normal, right? So imagine how much of tests I put my poor husband through to go from being a friend to saying, okay, I'll marry you. It was like, sometimes I'm sure it felt like I was doing him a favor, right? So we all have our way of putting people through tests. And if that relationship is meant to be, we make it through. Now that I've made Ariane laugh out so loud, what are your thoughts, Ariane? She can hardly contain herself.
Hey, maybe before I already said something,
Okay.
I would say, now talking about dating, I think that on Ariane's question, I think that the test is always we're always testing people, and dating is that, right?
Yes.
And we kind of date our friends, we test our people at work, we date them because we are kind of pushing the limits even more. We're always trying to push the limit a bit more, and understanding what is the result of that. So I think that dating or testing happen all the time with everybody.
Yes, but we have to be careful and do it gently so that we don't scare people away, right? And that's the balance.
Right.
That's the balancing act. So push the envelope a little at a time. Don't push it out the house the first time, right? Push it 2 inches. The next time, push 3 inches. Next time, maybe you can push 5 inches. Just see where the boundaries are, right?
And I think that if you are being honest with the other person, I think that that is a natural thing. I think that it's mutual. You know that basically you are even in a trusting mode, you are kind of understanding basically how you can trust even more. And
yes.
So is that going back to how much you show to that person, how much you show, you for most of the time you do it step by step. You don't. It's hard when you gotta go in a full mode situation. I would say it's rarely.
Yes, you're right. Imagine me meeting somebody and telling them my whole life story and telling them everything about me. In my Aeon world, they call it open kimono. It's like, don't walk in there and open your kimono. It's like, don't show your naked self to everybody on a first meeting. No, you got to let people acquire that information over time, right? Because otherwise it comes across as, oh my God, this person is so needy and so insecure and they have nobody else in their life. It's like the child who comes running to a stranger, hugs you and says, I love you. There are children like that. Because they have nothing to support them. They don't have a safe place. They don't have a nurturing environment, right? You don't want to come across that guy.
Andika.
Yeah.
I just want the whole 9 yards.
You want the whole 9 yards?
I was just like, bam, this is me. This is what you get. This is what you're signing for. I'm out. I have no idea how I got here, but it got me somewhere.
Oh, you're too funny.
But you know what? Even if I would say that, even if you want to, I don't think that you are going to be showing all yourself, even in a first date, right? So even if you are trying to, because you are in that start with the mood that you are in at that point in time as well. So you are going to be showing, because if you're angry at that point, you are going to be expressing yourself from that angle. So the person will not see your other side, your angry side, your sadness side, etc.
Very true. Very true. Do you guys have any other examples you want to share? Any thoughts? Any insights?
I have one more since I've already calmed down now. So the fact that I went in the full 9 yards was because I was tired and I was done. So I was like, if this is not it, whatever. So I just showed like the worst side of myself first. No, I don't think that's even normal, but that's what I did. I showed like the worst side of me first. And then what had happened was when he actually met me and he saw me around babies, that's when like the caring side came out, and that's when he saw like the other side of me. But it took the babies to take it out because I love babies and I got all squishy around them. So yeah, he saw my squishy and he fell in love.
But then if you showed your worst side, then you were actually pushing the envelope as far as possible to see if this person will get scared.
I was trying to scare him.
To see if they were strong enough to take you.
I was trying to scare him, but it didn't work.
So the second box is our blind self, our blind spot. These are things that we don't know about ourselves. We are unaware of ourselves, but others can see it. But they will share with us if there is a trusted relationship where they're comfortable, that we won't get offended, we won't get angry, and we won't be punitive. So this happens a lot in the workplace too, right? If I have a team of people and we are in the process of doing something, the kind of leader I am or the kind of person I am gives other people permission to share ideas and share insights and watch out for my blind spots. If I'm the kind of person who gets mad if other people had different opinions, or if people never agreed with me and went along with all my ideas, then people are not going to share with me my blind spots and help me, because I have not created the environment for that constructive feedback and that constructive dialogue. So once again, trust comes into play, and my ability to have that caring, compassionate relationship with others, to know that other people can see me differently. Just because somebody sees me differently doesn't mean that is how I really am. It is just how they feel I show up. Because remember, their perception is reality. Think about a simple thing. Molly, you and I talk about this, your mom and I talk about this. The way a person sounds is determined as a person's intelligence. So in America, if you have a British accent, you are considered a very trustworthy person and a highly intelligent person. If you have a foreign accent, whether you're Latin, whether you're Asian, you're African, even if you speak good English, because of your accent, you are treated as somebody who's less than, who's not playing with a full deck. You don't have all the marbles in place. People attribute accent. Okay, something simple. And what they think of me is not true, but it becomes my reality because that's how they perceive me. So me knowing how they perceive me is important, because otherwise that becomes my blind spot. It's not that I am dumb because I have an accent, or I'm super genius because I have the right accent, right? It's because how people are perceiving. There's this comedian, I'll probably send it to you guys as a attachment on Messenger or something later, but he's an Indian comedian, and he viewed thus. He talks about how South Asians, or the Indian subcontinent, is the white people of brown people. Because we walk into a room and everybody expects us to be super geniuses. Nobody ever questions our intelligence. They all expect us to be very super smart in technology, because they think we all work in IT. right? And we're either doctors, engineers, IT professionals. Those are the buckets they put us in, right? And that is a positive blind spot, right? If that's what people think of us and they're expecting that from us, and that is not who we are, then we need to know that to kind of bring that reality down so that they see us for who we are. Like if somebody sees me as Dr. Kasturi Henry and they want me to talk medicine, I always jokingly tell them I'm the kind of doctor who prevents you from getting a heart attack before you get yourself bankrupt. I'm a finance doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, right? So I take what they are thinking and kind of interject a little humor and bring the conversation to a different place. And now little by little, we're addressing the blind spot of what they expect of me, right? How do we know the difference between what is a blind spot that I am not seeing that I need to change versus a blind spot because somebody else is perceiving me differently and I need to show more of myself for them to get to know my whole self? There are two different aspects of this.
Kat,
Go ahead, Kristen.
I have a really good example of this. When we did the Enneagram last November, I found out that being a 9, I hate conflict, which I always knew that, but so I tend to not speak up as much. But what I didn't know was I was coming across as being passive aggressive, and that was never my intention. So I learned that, and I was, it was a big self-awareness thing. But just that hit home like really hard.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because number 9s, while 8, 9, and 1 are fueled by the core emotion of anger, 9 channels that anger inside. And they're always trying to, so their childhood trauma somehow made them believe that if there's something about them that caused everything around them, and therefore it's their job to hold the peace and appease everybody so that there is calmness and sanity around them at all times, and they don't want to be in conflict. So they try to be everything different for every person because they want to hold that peace, and pretty soon nobody knows who they really are. They can become a chameleon. And so who are you really? Why are you being passive aggressive? Why can't you speak your mind and hold your truth? Because as a 9, you don't want to speak up every time because it's not about you, it's about holding the peace, right? And number 9s can be like simmering volcanoes because while you never get angry and you may come across passive aggressive, when you erupt, it is truly a volcanic eruption. And then everybody's like, whoa, where did that Kristen come from, right? My husband is a 9, so we're very familiar with this, right? So regardless of what is causing me to be the pacemaker, how do I make sure I show up in a way that other people know why I'm coming from, where I'm coming from, and why that piece is important to me? So you don't have to share your trauma, but if you can share with people why keeping the peace is important to you, all of a sudden people have context to why you do the things you do. Therefore, they look at you through that lens. But in order for you to share that with people, you need to know, because unless we had done that Enneagram coaching session, you wouldn't have known that's how people perceive you. And once you knew that, and it was a safe space, you were able to actually share it with them. So imagine the work that it took. And these are people you've worked with for years. But that particular day, that particular process created the environment to be able to address that blind self. Yes, Ariane.
I kind of just blanked out, but it had to do. I blanked out. Share why peace is important. Oh, about the trauma stuff. Is it possible? Okay, we don't have to share the trauma in order to share why the peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
is there a possibility that you can share the trauma in order to make it more relatable, or you could just make it relatable without the trauma?
It's up to your comfort level.
Okay, okay.
Because remember, not in every situation you can share some of this. Because if you work in an organization where culture is that people are taking notes and going to use that against you. So if you had a trauma and their relation to that trauma is very different, they're going to perceive you differently. And therefore they're going to say, oh, this happened to this person, and therefore these are the kind of behaviors I have to expect from this person, and therefore this person is not going to be a good fit for my team. I'm doing all of this based on what happened to me. I've worked with people who believe that, oh, this scenario happened to me, so anybody who's lived through that scenario are going to show up just like my step-parent, which is not the case. So imagine everybody is looking at life through their lens of their trauma. Just because you shared your trauma to give people insight into why you show up the way you do, doesn't mean they're going to see you the way you want them to see, because they're going to still see it through their lens.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because again, perception, perspective, completely different.
Okay. And if you're going through your own journey of self-discovery and you are comfortable being yourself, don't expect everybody else to be. Yeah. When you share, they're going to think that you're crazy for even telling me this. So knowing your audience is important. Knowing how much to tell is important. And knowing how it is going to be used or misused is also important, because your judgment has to still be in play.
Okay.
So Kath, can I add quickly to that? So being aware that I was being perceived possibly as being passive aggressive when that wasn't what I was trying to do at all, just knowing that helped me then going forward to try to speak up or say what I was really feeling, you know, like, so I don't know if that helps you, Ariane, but I think just like finding that blind spot and then saying, oh, wow. So it made it more important for me to not to disrupt the piece, but it was like I had to learn to then speak up. You know what I mean? Because I was like, well, otherwise I'm being perceived as being a passive aggressive person. So
my struggle always is people come up to me and tell me, for being a finance executive, why are you so kind? You can't be this kind and be a successful finance executive, because somehow I'm supposed to be hard. And so we sit down and talk about it. And my response in different ways ends up being, you know, I am a human being who has the capacity and capability to be kind and caring and empathetic, who happens to be a finance executive. I'm not a finance executive who happens to be human, because to make that statement, we need to have finance executives who are Martians. Right? So I tend to bring the humor as a shock element to kind of reset perception. But I also remind, then the next question is, when people are so horrible to you, why are you still nice to them? Why do you do that, and what are you getting out of it? And so that is an opportunity to have a conversation about how I show up is what I own. That is who I am. And just because somebody treats me badly, I'm not going to give them the power to change me, to become part of that darkness. The light inside of me is bright enough for me to shine. And I'm not going to let the negativity of somebody else take away the brightness that I inherently have. That is a gift I have from my maker, right? And if I can help, and invariably that conversation goes to the other person breaking down in tears saying, oh my God, I learned something. Even my bosses have broken down and cried when we've had this conversation, because it took them to a place where they had their blind spot and they were struggling because they felt that they had to be, you know, I need to be constantly hitting against something and showing that I'm tough, I'm tough, I'm tough, when it's completely destroying me inside. Toughness is a state of mind. It is not how we treat other people. Right? Toughness is being able to take something. Being kind to people is the most vulnerable thing a person can do. And being vulnerable is the most courageous thing a person can be. The reason people are not kind is they're afraid of being hurt. Fear is a complete lack of courage. Right? The courage that me being kind is not going to take away anything from me. It's not going to diminish my light. And I can still shine and be the person I'm meant to be. If we can help somebody get there, then that conversation would have been very positive. But then what happens is they start coming to you to talk about everything because they know you're kind and you're empathetic, right? And you will see all of a sudden when that cathartic conversation happens, then everything flips. Excuse me. So blind self is not only what I am not aware of, what I am not showing to other people that I need to make visible and provide context to, so that it's no longer blind. And that cannot happen until we have a relationship, at least with ourselves, that we're comfortable enough and we can trust and we can show up. Hey, Shawnees.
Hi, Cass. How are you?
I am good. Shawnees is joining us from Belize too.
Yes, I am. I'm just listening in and kind of absorbing.
How's the baby doing?
She's fine. She's hollering right now. I needed to run to a quiet place so that I could listen for a second, but still keep an eye on her. But
Okay.
she's doing fine.
Thank you for joining. Shawnee's
No
just
problem.
had a baby girl.
Thank you. Yes, she's growing on me fast. I can't believe it, but it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So here is a good opportunity for me to tell a story. How one can be open and get past their blind spots. Since Shawnee's is here, I'm going to tell this story. My husband and I, with a friend of ours, somebody actually who was assigned to us as our tour guide, when we were in Belize, we were going to Zonatanich, the Mayan mountain. My husband was just after his surgery, after his second cancer surgery, and he couldn't walk too much and couldn't climb too much. So we were holding his hand and helping him go up because he was determined he was going to go up that Mayan mountain. And Shawnee saw this, walked up to us and said, you know, I'm here alone. It's my day off. And why don't I give you a hand so that you guys can take a break from time to time and let's do this together. Right? Imagine a stranger coming up, opening herself up and saying, you know, I'm free. I'm up there to enjoy myself. Let's do this together. And I'm here to help you. Right? All of a sudden, the blind spots we can start addressing them, right? And we are starting with that openness. And every time we're in Belize, Shawnee's comes and sees us. We do things together. We go see her. And that's how relationships are built, right? Strangers can walk into our lives and be open enough to build that foundation of trust to then have something, you know, meaningful come from it. So don't feel like I can't open myself to somebody, right? We've had so many meaningful conversations. We made plans. She talked about her career aspirations, all of that on a walk up the Mayan mountain, right? So it is possible, but both parties need to be willing to show up. What if I had looked at her and said, why do you want to help me? It's like, are you trying to mug me because I have to focus on my husband and then my purse is here? There are so many places I could have gone and I could have been negative. She could have thought, you know, it's my off day. I'm here to have a good day for myself. I see them, they look like they may need help, but why bother? Right? Both parties could have done that. But at that moment, that is not what happened, right? And so that is how Johari's window allows us to look at situations and start looking at things differently to say, what is working here? What is not working here? How do we expand that scope of trust and that opportunity for feedback so that our open self can be expansive? And we can each show up comfortably as ourselves without judgment. Some of you who have talked about, you know, concerns and situations you're trying to deal with, I always remind you, honest, authentic relationships don't make judgments. They don't judge you. They just hold space for you, right? Doesn't mean they are not making judgments on how to help you, how to be there for you, but they're not judging you, right? And how do I be that person so that other people can be open in themselves? Because this is a two-way conversation, right? How do I need to be? And how do I allow other people to be? Both are things I'm learning from the Johari window. And then it sets the stage for how I show up, how I communicate, and how I build relationships. Everything is predicated on this. The hidden area of facade is what I am not yet comfortable sharing with anybody because people might judge me. I got drunk and I got a DUI when I was in school. Not that it's true, I don't drink. Never been drunk, but you know, there are things in our lives that we don't want people to know. Sometimes it's because we carry that as a personal shame. Somebody did something to me, but it's not something society talks about. Therefore, it is a stigma, and because I allowed it to happen to me, it must be something that's wrong with me. Okay? For whatever reason, we're afraid, we're scared, we're ashamed. We don't want to be prejudged, so we hide it from everybody. Only on an as-needed basis, it comes out. And only if there is no other choice, but I have to share it. But imagine if you have relationships where you can talk about everything, because then your healing can start. Anything that is a dirty little secret is always going to be toxic. This can happen in workplaces. How many of us have worked with people, worked for bosses who are so abusive, but you're told by the organization, you have to figure out a way to deal with it because this other person is a higher ranking person and we value them more. And if you don't like it, you can leave. That happens. So you hide your ideas, you hide your skills, you hide your knowledge because you do just enough till you find another job, right? Can happen in families, it can happen in marriages, it can happen. Work and friendship we choose. So hopefully those two situations we can remedy. Parents and family other than your spouse, you do not get to choose. So that the only way to remedy that is to walk away if it's that bad. Right? So hidden self is things I know, but I am not ready to share. It is feelings, it's experiences, it's fears, it's secrets. It's things that I guarded with all my life. Imagine all the things that people do to guard their secret. Some people will kill to protect their secret. Imagine the power that secret has. Some people kill themselves because they can't deal with it. Right? So that is how powerful the things we suppress are. So Johari's window is also reminding us, don't give things that much power. It only controls us when we give it the power to control us. Thoughts, I can hear, I can actually see from faces that you're thinking very hard. Thoughts, any ideas, any insights to share?
I'll share. I shared with you something very personal that happened to me. Remember last weekend I was telling you? And it's something that scared me, and it caused me to do some like self-harming behaviors because it was so toxic and it was terrifying. But instead I turned that like inward.
Mm-hmm.
So that is true. The secret can be toxic.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we invariably end up harming ourselves and hurting ourselves. And so one of the most important things to remember is what happens to us has nothing to do with us. What happens to us is owned by the person who said or did that to us. When you place the responsibility where it belongs, then you stop making it your problem and you start your journey of healing.
So this one took me deep. That's why I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like my life kind of flashing before my eyes again, and it's like, oh, it's like the aha moment, but
Mm-hmm.
that just leaves you, yeah. Because when I found out I was adopted by myself, right, when I was 10, and I found this through a folder that my mom didn't let me touch at all. Every time I would be around that folder, it would be like a whole flip.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did find out, my whole world crashed because I am the only child. And the letters, I found out through the letters of recommendation that she was the perfect mom, or she could be a mom at that point. And it was from people I knew. So to me, as a 10-year-old child, it came as a shock, and my whole life became a lie, and everything just became shambles and darkness. And I call, because they told me until I was 15, so I call that 5-year span of my dark years, because I went through a lot of rebelling phases that no one noticed. I did it so good that I hurt myself. I didn't hurt anybody but myself. So like I did so many things that they didn't like, and that was my form of rebellion, saying my whole life is a lie, so I'm gonna do what you guys don't like, and I'm gonna stand by that, and nothing is gonna, and only I got hurt, because until this day no one knows every single thing I put myself through, and only I got hurt. And I realized until like this year, I think, that everything that I've seen and went through in the past was all a story in my head, because it was never like that. Never like that. So yeah, that's like a summary of where my brain went just now.
And thank you for sharing that, because that's an important story to remember, because we all have self-talk. Our self-talk comes from what we perceive things to be. And normally, when we are angry, we are sad, we are ashamed, we are embarrassed, all of those emotions only harm us. Right? If I'm angry, if I'm sad, if I'm unhappy, all it takes away is my ability to live my life to its fullest, be happy, be at peace. And the time I have lost, I can never get in life. Life is about moments. Are we making every moment count? And the true value of life is being able to live it freely, so that we each live it with happiness and peace. Everything else is things we do. But a state of being in peace and a state of being happy is every human's quest, right? We all do the things we do in order to be able to have peace and happiness. But when we bring all of those negative emotions and it's our hidden facade, and we are completely bringing that to bear, we're only harming ourselves. And thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that, both of you, Kristen and Ariane. Unknown arena is what we do not know about ourselves and other people don't know about ourselves, because we have not explored it and we have not allowed other people to enter into our sphere and help us explore it or participate in exploring with us, which is something completely different from what we are doing here, right? Here we are creating that safe space to be able to go to those unknown areas, because every time we have an aha moment, that's what's happening. In order to learn more and more about our unknown self, we have to be more open. We have to be able to trust everybody. We have to get up past our fear and shame and anger to bring our hidden self out. So the yellow, green, and blue box need to start expanding into the orange box for us to make that orange box smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is a journey that we cannot take alone. Here is a situation. Somebody is in a new environment. Linda is joining a new organization. So she only shares so much of herself. She's new. You don't want to tell everybody everything. They should care enough to get to know the rest too, right? And her coworkers know very little about her, so they can't give her too much feedback. There's a lot hidden about her, but what is unknown about her to herself and the others is the largest piece. So we can each take the 4 boxes of Johari Window and draw it to size and see, how does our Johari window look like based on how much I am opening up myself to, where are my blind spots, how much am I hiding, and what is my unknown self to me and others. So each of our Johari window is going to be different. So I put this as an example so that you don't think it's equal squares here. Those were to explain to you what each of them are, but each of us are going to have a unique window. It's the window through which our life is seen by ourselves and others. So the process requires self-awareness, introspection, and the courage to actually do self-examination, right? Ask those hard questions and find our true self. And then surround ourselves with people who are going to help address our blind spots and help us get to know the unknown self together with somebody else's help.
Auntie guys, can I add to that?
Yes.
So it's also important to have those difficult conversations, because sometimes everyone needs to be aware of this, like at this moment, especially right now, because we have a lot that we're carrying through that isn't necessarily true, like what I went through. And we have to be able to tell people why we did what we did and why we do what we do now, or why we said what we said, in order for them to understand where we were coming from and why we did that. And in order for us to know why they did what they did to us. Because half of the time we go through life basing our perception only on what someone did to us, but never really knowing why they said what they said or why they did what they did. So it's super important to have these hard conversations, especially if it's someone that means the world to you. I just had it with my little cousin, and I won't share much into that, but it was basically why I was doing what I was doing, because she did something that I took in a completely different way, and she was completely oblivious to what I was doing again. So it's important to have those hard conversations and to be aware of, pretty much be aware if someone else is aware of why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And that's important. And thank you for going there, Ariane, because take a look at what's going on in the world. Take a look at what's going on in our country. You can't turn on the TV without wanting to break it. You can't talk to a family member without walking away saying, I don't ever want to talk to you again, right? Friendships are breaking up. Why? Because nobody is willing to have the conversations. Nobody wants to be true to themselves. Nobody wants to understand the blind spots. Nobody wants to be open about the hidden self. And therefore, we have so much of unknowns and everybody pitted against each other, and complete lack of conversation and complete and utter disrespect and non-acceptance of each other. Right? The whole world around us is polarized. It's so polarized to a point where businesses are getting ready for a disaster recovery plan for 2-3 weeks from today, because regardless of what happens in the election, we are expecting a mass civil unrest. And in order for businesses to be viable, we are required to have a business continuity plan. So when not only do we have to worry about the pandemic, we have to worry about who's going to kill whom in a country where there is conceal and carry. Plus, some people will get killed for this color of their skin. Other people will not even be reprimanded for carrying, weapons of war. And so what you look like, what people attribute you to, from a race perspective, gender perspective, your background or your belief perspective, all of this is going to come colliding. And businesses don't have the luxury to sit back and say, let's let it all play out. Because this is going to affect business. People don't realize. People get mad when the economy doesn't do well, but people don't realize how we each show up and how we destroy each other because of our blind spots and our unknown self and our hidden self, because we don't trust, because we don't have those difficult conversations, like Ariane just mentioned. How much of destruction of not just human life is the ultimate, right? We're destroying human life. We are breaching trust, and we are creating a climate where property and businesses are going to be destroyed continuously, right? And all of this is because we don't open these windows up to talk through it. We don't self-examine. We do not create a framework of trust to be able to look into each other's window and say, hey, this is cool, right? I didn't know this was inside your house. Hey, bring it out. Let's look at it, right? If you start looking at this as a nice stained glass window, what are all the hidden treasures that are in there that is worth bringing out for the world to get the benefit of? What if you peek into somebody else's window and give them some encouragement of, oh my God, you need to show up like this more often, right? Imagine how positively contagious we can make this. Contagiousness is not just a negative thing. Positivity can be contagious too. So how do we get there? How do we get people there? That is the $1 million question. Hopefully, this Johari Window conversation has helped you bring the emotional intelligence pieces of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship building, all of that together, overlay the way to trust and build networks and relationships where we can communicate authentically. It brings so many of those elements that each of you are seeking to build your purposeful life so that you can go out there and live your meaningful life and your best life. And I know some of you really were interested in having this conversation, so I made sure we do this. Alejandro, thank you for proposing that we do this as a show. Appreciate that idea. And hopefully you have gotten what you wanted out of it as well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think that just discussing this from a different point of view, it kind of start mixing out the different elements that we have talked about the past few weeks. I think that this was very constructive and interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we bring the show to a close, there are a couple of things I want to share with you. Next week, I am going to be on another show promoting my book. So what I'm going to do is send you guys an invitation to attend that. That'll be fun. That is going to be kind of like a TV show. So it'll be a very different format, but it'll be fun. So look forward to seeing you there. The book is coming out on Tuesday, the 20th. I will email everybody the links to go buy your copy. The first day, the electronic copy is going to be available for $1. Okay, only the electronic copy. So my humble request to you is share it with your network, get the message out so that as many people as possible can get their hands on the book for two reasons. One, I want my book to do well, right? And become a bestseller. But I also want people to get the benefit of the book. The book talks about a lot of the things we are discussing on our show here. And through the power of storytelling and through the power of lessons learned, other people who are not participating with us every week have the opportunity to take that journey for themselves. And so help me get the message out. And the last thing I want to share with you as we close is there's a reason why I'm dressed like this today. It is actually the first of 10 days of fasting and celebration in the Hindu culture. The first 3 days are for the goddess of courage. And courage is about the ability to live our truth, speak our truth, have the courage to be kind and compassionate, and show up the way we were meant to show up, right? So the goddess of courage and praying to her and fasting is something I do the first 3 days, and I hold everybody who is part of my circle in my thoughts and prayers because I want everybody to be able to live a courageous life. The next 3 days are for goddess of wealth. And in our culture, wealth is not just money. This earth and the environment that sustains us is a wealth. The food that gives us nutrition and sustains us is a wealth. The relationships that give us meaning and the people who are around us who give our life an anchor, that is a wealth. So all these wealths helping us live a meaningful life so that we are surrounded by love and peace and happiness, that's the second 3 days. The last 3 days are for the goddess of knowledge and wisdom, so that everything we learn, everything that we are exposed to, help us become wiser human beings so that we live a life that is worthy of ourselves. And then the 10th day, we put all our tools of craft and trade. And after having a family prayer, we take it and start doing whatever we do for the first time. So we initiate children to reading, music, any learning activity on that 10th day. And if you notice, they're all for goddesses. We're a culture that respects women. We're a culture that give women a very special place. And so all 10 days are dedicated to goddesses. So all of you goddesses out there, make sure you go and live your life of courage, build your wealth in the true sense of the meaning, and gather your wisdom. And the men who respect women and allow women to have that space, that is a very important thing too. So for all of us out there, I wish you all the next 10 days filled with courage, your wealth, and your knowledge and your wisdom so that you live a purposeful life and you truly find your centeredness and become your own Goldilocks with or without the cults. Go out there and engage in your day-to-day lives. And remember, every human interaction you have is your opportunity for transformation. So go out there, transform lives, and please make the time to transform yourself too.
I have one more thing to add before we close, Antikas. I wrote something this morning, working on the secret project.
Okay.
You know, that one. Yeah, but the last piece of it I do want to share because it's cute and it relates to this. So I'll just read the full thing. I was just going to read the last little piece, but anyway. I am ready to be ennobled for success. I am ready to be my most authentic self. I'm ready to do the work and step into my greatness. I am ready to be the change I want to see in this world through the power of love. Ariane.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And everybody have a beautiful rest of the weekend. And I will see you on my TV show as a guest next weekend.